Good evening, everyone. I am Anjanika Kanlapan from Group 3, and we will be tackling about martial law and the art of resistance. Slide. So, before anything else, let me share a brief background and history about martial law. So, martial law is the temporary imposition of direct military control of normal civil functions or suspension of civil law by a government, especially in response to a temporary emergency civil forces are overwhelmed or in an occupied territory. Thus, September 21, 1972 became the official date that martial law was established and the official date that martial law and the day that the Marcos dictatorship began. This also allowed Marcos to control history on his own terms. President Ferdinand E. Marcos signed Proclamation Number 1081 on September 21, 1972, placing the Philippines under martial law. So President Marcos imposed martial law on the nation from 1972 to 1981 to suppress increasing civil strife and the threat of a communist takeover following a series of bombing in Manila. Thousands of people were killed and hundreds of thousands were made homeless. So most people, especially the victims of President Ferdinand E. Marcos' so-called constitutional dictatorship, would remember only the evil things about martial law. But if historians would be fair about it, there were also some positive things about it. But the bad things, of course, include the warrantless arrest, the indefinite detention without charges, and alleged torture, rape, and other detestable abuses, supposedly committed by military officials and personnel who went out of bounds. So next slide, please. So a lot has happened during the martial law. Thousands are killed, tortured, raped, and abused, and others were made homeless. Then some Filipino wanted to protest, wanted people to know what difficulties they've faced. They wanted to express these clump feelings. They wanted to shout out. So people express these feelings, these words that they wanted to share. They do express it through art. Next slide, please. So let's start with Jaime de Guzman. One of his art titled Sabbath of the Witches, oil on canvas 1970, to capture the climate of protest under martial law. Then next is Danny Dakna. In 1972, he had a toilet or cubeta art exhibit as a statement on the political situation and declaration of martial law. He also painted the dregs of society gamblers and bettors in High Alay and drunkards and bar girls in a pub named Alibangbang. Next is Benedicto Cabrera, or also known as Ben Cab, famous for his Table series. Next is Oniv Olmedo, painted distorted figures of the lonely and desperate, exemplified by his series entitled Sinskong Suka in 1971. Next slide, please. Next is Nagkakaisang Prognatibong Artista at Arkitekto, or NPAA, in 1960s. Organized by students from the University of the Philippines. Under martial law, any critic of Marcos and the new society was subjected to arrest, torture, or disappearance. So they used drawings and illustrations which they disseminated. These artists revealed the other side of the Bagong Lipunan. Next slide, please. Next is Social Realist, or SR. So these names that you've read in our PPT, they declared a manifesto on revolutionary aesthetic based on class struggle. They also stated that art should reflect the true conditions of the mass of rural and urban workers. Next slide, please. So nationalist themes and visions, brought forth in the works of women painters who were not members of the SR group or social realist. So first is Brenda Fajardo. Her series Baraba Rig and Bay Filipino focus on themes of people decolonizing culture. Next is Anna Fer. did several drawings on human rights abuses during martial law. Next slide, please. And lastly, Imelda Kahipe Endaya used Sawali and Nipa for her large-scale Pasyong Bayan in 1983, depicted violations of human rights during the dictatorial regime. So, their artwork criticized the ills of a society as propped up by American imperialism and aspired towards the attainment of justice, democracy, and true national sovereignty. So, let's jump up to the next reporter.
So, good evening everyone. My name is Keith Adrian G. Pardillo, and I'm gonna tackling about artworks using affordable materials. So, the high cost of art materials and marginalization in the art market only serve to further provoke the imagination and resourcefulness of visual artists. For most among artists working with indigenous materials. So kay tungod ni mahal man ang mga art materials, mas ni creative and innovative ang mga artists. And nag-use sila mga indigenous materials or mga scraps to create a masterpiece. So, si Junyi Louis V. Jr. or the father of installation art in the Philippines. Si installation, Balag, 1976. So, the term installation art is used to describe a large-scale mixed media constructions, often designed for a specific place or temporary period of time. So, si Louis E. Jr., better known as Junyi, is a pioneer of installation art in the Philippines, born in Agusan del Norte, 1942. So the next one, Francisco Verano, with his sculpture Bamboo Fuge, 1980s. So Francisco King Verano is well known for his sculptures made of unconventional and indigenous materials. So he's using old wood from demolished houses to make statements on the human condition. So the next one, Paz Abad Santos. Her exhibit strands, 1980. So Paz Abad Santos is an artist born in 1943, the oldest auction result ever registered on the website. For an artwork by this artist is a drawing, watercolor. I guess it's sold in 2016 at Salcedo Auctions. Santiago Busey, well known for his pioneering installation fashion at Revolution 1983 and modern Igorot contemplating on his ancestors in 1987. The video bone cleaning ritual, which combined indigenous and Cordilleran materials with TV technology. Next slide, please. So we have Kahipi Indaya. Artwork, May Bukas Pa Inay, 1982, and Bintana ni Momo, 1983. So, Imelda Kahipi Indaya is a Filipino printmaker, painter, mixed media, and installation artist, curator, and an art project organizer. She is also an author of various texts and books, as well as the co-founder of Kasibulan and an artist collective in Philippines, born on September 16, 1949. So the next one, Roberto Peleo. Artwork, Sapin Sapin, series of 1985. He's born in 1954, Metro Manila. Roberto Peleo is a sculptor who graduated from the Philippine Women's University Fine Arts program 1982 and studied art history at the University of the Philippines. So, Edson Armenta. Who is Edson Armenta? Artwork is Patibong Series 1986 to 1988. So, the word patibong, it is a Tagalog Filipino term that means trap. Subscribing to a psychoanalytical theory that destructiveness is inherent in man, and Freudian theory that such is rooted in the libido. And it took him 3 years to complete about 50 sculptures installation using indigenous materials like bamboo, guava wood, coconut, and etc. Jose N.C. Ruiz. So, is a Filipino Asian modern and contemporary painter who was born in 1956. Their work was featured in several exhibitions at galleries and museums. So, this Paisado Abutingas, a part of the Artist Return Cathedral series of 2011-2012. So, poets, musicians, fictionists, dramatists, and essayists vented their anger at social injustice through pieces created for literary contest. And through individual or private publications, serious film artists venture into depicting Filipino characters and problems realistically rooted in social ills. So there are some popular writers of the period include Benvenido Lumbers, Jose Lacaba, Bonifacio Ilagan, Vi Balgos de la Cruz, and the others. So that's all. Thank you for my report. So the next reporter.
Hello, I'm Sam Xavier. So I'm gonna talk about the theater and the films. So theater is an art concerned almost exclusively with live performances in which they precisely combine words, voice, tone, movement, and visual elements to express meaning. So live siya, dili recording. So because of its live quality, it proved to be the most effective medium to protest. So it uses folk forms, religious forms, history, and adaptation of foreign classics to make the performance get interesting, but not only for entertainment, but to tackle social ills and bring forth critical views on social concerns, and uses theater as a tool for empowerment. So theater was also popularized among communities nationwide through various training workshops spearheaded by theater groups such as PETA, the Philippine Educational Theater Association, UP Repertory Company, Palihang Aurelio Tolentino, and their partners in the region. Next, please. So films. Lino Broca. His films express the evil deeds of authoritarian rule by showing how Manila had become worse in the new society and how the poverty in the city turned the residents into heartless people, doing anything they can just to survive each day. So Inchang 1976, Jaguar 1979, and Bona 1980 are known movies in Broca, and all are set in the slums, which the main characters are caught up in various situations of failure. So in these films, the only chance to free oneself from suffering is to learn violence. So Lino Broca also directed the Manila sa Mga Kuko ng Liwanag on 1975, which is an adaptation of the Edgardo Reyes novel. Next, please. Ishmael Bernal. His films are more focused on rural areas, which provide us with a more sordid vision of the nation in crisis. So two of his recognized works are Nunal sa Tubig 1976 and Himala 1982. So these movies are more focused on what's happening in the islands and barrios. So it shows how people abuse tradition sa Nunal sa Tubig and ilagi abuse ang religion sa movie nga Himala. Bernal also situates the protest against power in the city itself sa Manila. So entitled Manila by Night, City After Dark, 1980, which is a portrait of various pain. Celso Ad Castillo. So Celso focuses movies about desires. So Burlesque Queen, 1977, starred by Vilma Santos, is about a female dancer learning how to resist the society run by men through her own body. So dance, yeah, sa mga bars just to buy his crippled father a wheelchair. Next, please. Snake Sisters, 1983, Isla, and The Virgin People, 1983, are films that deals with taboos. So Mike De Leon, so his movies, Itim, 1976, harnesses horror to comment on the evil deeds of a feudal family. So De Leon elaborates on trauma as rooted in society but doubts that wounded people can ever fight back. So his characters daw kanang giapi daw and then ni give up nag-fight kay dili nila makaya, so mana give in to the madness which envelopes them, as in his films Kisap Mata 1981 and Hindi Nahati ang Langit 1985. Lupita Aquino Kashiwara. So her famous film Minsan Isang Gamo-Gamo 1976, a stirring indictment of American imperialism which supported the dictatorship. So it was really a rally against continuing colonization and American presence in the country. Next, please. Marilu Diaz-Zabaya. Her recognized works are her feminist trilogy Brutal 1980, Moral 1982, and Carmel 1983. So in these films, women are subjected to oppression and discrimination, and Abaya dissects this power relation to empower women in their struggles to resist male domination. So her movies mirrors the different phases of the women in our society during martial law and how they struggle on what's happening in their lives, and also shows their attempt to solve their problem. So next, please. So, Kidlat Tahimik. So Tahimik's Mababangong Bangungot 1977 is a tale that explores how third world creativity was confounded in the age of modern machines. So it showcases a glimpse of old rural Philippines and the struggles of a common Filipino man against globalization and discrimination abroad. Next one is Nick de Ocampo, Oliver, 1983, is a documentary that contrasts the spell of a transgender performer with his stark poverty. So he supports his family by performing in Manila's gay bars during the Marcos dictatorship. Last is Raymond Red's Ang Magpakailanman, 1983, is a short film meditating on crime, punishment, and suicide in a time of political unrest. So these three, Kidlat Tahimik, Nick de Ocampo, and Raymond Red are the forerunners of the Philippine independent film movement. So that's all for our topic. Thank you very much.